We've got Pete Crow Armstrong on the show, the next phenom that'll be joining the Cubs at some point soon. Before we talk to him, the Cubs' #1 prospect, do me a favor, guys, like and subscribe. Be part of our channel. I know a lot of you guys have, and we want to keep our momentum going. First off, what's up, man? How you been, and how are things going in AAA?
Good, man. I'm missing my boys over there in Tennessee, but um, it's been an easy transition, and I've enjoyed the last week and some change here. We're playing some good baseball, and that's been nice to kind of carry that feeling over from Kodak. So
Look, I've watched a lot of guys come and go through the years. I've never seen anyone who can play the game at the speed that you play it at, other than maybe like Bryce Harper, which I kind of compared you guys a lot during the season when you were with Tennessee. How do you play the game so fast? And I'm talking about running the bases, reading pitches that end up in the dirt, the way that you get your first step, jumps on fly balls into the gaps. Reached for, line drive, center field. Here comes Pete Crow Armstrong. Hollywood Pete dives, and he makes the catch. When did you develop that? How did you develop that?
that's a good question. I think I definitely I'm aware of the speed that I try and play at. I think just being somebody who can run a little bit and make things happen on the defensive side of things, I think it's important to utilize that part of my game. And I think it's probably in part, I think the guys I grew up watching, Andrew McCutcheon, and I obviously watched Javy and the things he could do defensively, but just I think I developed a very athletic approach to the game of baseball because I mean I think for your average watcher, for your average fan, I think that the real athleticism that has to be utilized, it gets lost sometimes, but you don't really realize it from the stands watching some guys move on the field, how plays are actually made with people's legs and stuff like that. And I also I think if you have watched me play, you could see that that gets me into trouble sometimes. So you know I I, I think that everything in the game of baseball is a constant battle and work in progress. So um, I think I'm just trying to perfect the speed at which I play it as or along with other things in my game. But I definitely try and take advantage of the moments I can use my legs or my glove.
Yeah, I mean, look, you scored from second base with the bases loaded on a ground out, which I don't know if I'll ever see that again, right? I mean, but it was just like one of those split second moments where you must have read that they weren't going to pay attention and scored from second. And I know that without the video here, people at home can only imagine, but just imagine me sitting there watching that. It was crazy.
Yeah, that was a good one. I felt actually around that time. Um, I mean, I was feeling like I wasn't. I mean, I've talked about taking advantage of the legs, right? Like I feel like I wasn't doing that enough, and I think that I was trying too hard to make stuff happen instead of just kind of going and doing things based off of reaction and instinct. And that was one of those plays I let reaction and instinct take over. And I think any time you can steal a run without having somebody in the box is huge. Hitting's hard, and I mean, you saw how many runs I scored, and
Yeah.
even the RBIs I had in Tennessee out of the leadoff spot was pretty ridiculous. But that's just a testament to the guys that were hitting behind me, and so I mean, yeah, like as hard as hitting is, I think we had a relatively easy time in the grand scheme of things, scoring runs in Double A, and I just had really good teammates behind me, driving me in and getting me on to the next base. So yeah,
Well, I could tell you this. Cubs fans are going to love watching you hit in the clutch when the game's on the line. It's like you kind of have this next gear, and the great players have that ability. Is that something that you worked on, or is it just you're just in the thick of the fight, and that's the moment that you know that you can kind of checkmate the opponent?
gosh, I mean, I would say that, yeah, that's me being in the thick of it. I think, you know, your competitive instinct takes over as well. You know, if you're a competitor in a similar fashion I am, I think you want to be in those moments. And you know, I don't think I really had that many moments where I that are considered like clutch moments. But sorry, I got a phone notification right there. I was, but again, like that goes back to the guys that were hitting behind me,
Hmm.
you know? I got a lot of bases loaded opportunities this year. Um, again, like just this was all kind of new to me as a leadoff hitter. I don't think I've ever played on a team where I've just had that many opportunities just kind of given to me. Yes, I mean I came through a few times, but again, like it's every at bat leading up to the walk off or to the go ahead hit that actually makes that happen. And um, I mean, gosh, if you want to talk about a good 1 through 9, I mean Tennessee had it.
Yeah.
Um, our bottom three, like it was just. I think if you want to be in those situations, like any sort of pressure was taken off, just knowing that, oh, even if I don't do it here, uh, BJ's gonna do it, or Owen's gonna do it, or Hayden's gonna do it, and I think that gives you peace of mind going into situations like that. And all you got to do is lock in on the pitcher looking for.
Hey, look, there's so much talent right now in the Cubs minor league system. I mean, it's more than just like, hey, they're ranked first or they're ranked second. I mean, there's a lot of studs that are coming, and it's going to be really competitive on that big league roster in the years to come, because you mentioned so many different guys. The last thing I got to ask you before I want to kind of get into how you fell in love with the Cubs, because I know your dad's a Cubs fan. You had a 16 pitch at bat and you hit a grand slam. That's another thing that I just don't know that I'll ever see again. And you may have not even ever do that again in your career, but I mean, how does that even happen?
Swing and a high deep drive to right field. Way back goes Norman, and there she goes! Pete Crow Armstrong with a grand salami. And one of the most epic at-bats that I've ever seen.
I mean, you're asking the same questions I was. Uh, I don't know. I think you know we've mentioned the competitive nature of people, and you know I think anybody can do that. You know, especially some of these guys I've played with. I think anybody's capable of really locking it in and buckling down and kind of just riding with the survival mode idea, you know, because once you get, I feel like a lot of times once you get to pitch 7, 8, it's like, okay, this was a long at bat. You know, you still gotta hit what he's throwing to you, and so I think I just got to a point in that at bat where I was like, okay, we're just gonna foul stuff off until I feel like I really get a pitch I can handle, and luckily I got the barrel there just enough. Um, yeah, but I mean that you're right, like, that could never happen again, and I wouldn't be surprised,
But you did it
but
already, right?
but I'll take it,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
tell me about falling in love with the Cubs. I know your dad's from Illinois. He's been a Cubs fan. I was probably the same as him. Grew up watching the Cubs on WGN and Harry, and it just
yeah.
became such a part of my life. And so, you know, anyone that knows me knows I love the Cubs. How did you fall in love with the Cubs?
I didn't at first, I mean, you could say that it started when I was really young. My parents like to remind me that there was a point in my life when I was probably 3 years old when I'd wake up and I'd go wake them up, and, I'd have them go out into the backyard with me and just from the crack of dawn start playing ball, or I'd have my dad turn on the Kerry Wood 20 strikeout game, or
Oh,
something
nice.
like, yeah, something like that. And um, I would say that's probably when it first got ingrained in my subconscious mind. Um, but you know, I just loved baseball. I just loved different players who played the game for the longest time, and it wasn't until I was probably like 11 or 12 that my dad was like, "Hey, the Cubs are about to be really good. They're in rebuild mode and whatever, and this is your last chance jump on the bandwagon. So you either come aboard or you don't. And I decided to, and that's not to forget that I was a big Alfonso Soriano fan, a big Aramis Ramirez fan. Obviously, Javy Báez when he got up there, and that whole group of younger guys at that time. But yeah, I would say I probably it was just probably hearing enough of my dad being like, "All right, man, your time's almost up." Like, so I would say that, but I think still to this day, I even though I was a Cubs fan, I always still just appreciated like baseball players who I wanted to like on the field.
Right, right. What was it like when the Cubs won the World Series at your house? How stoked was your dad?
It was actually just me and my dad in the house when it happened. I remember he went to one of the games. I want to say it was like game 4 or something at Wrigley, and or maybe it might have been the NLDS or CS or something. I don't quite remember, but I was in my freshman year, I think, and it was just me and my dad in the townhome we were living in. I just remember him jumping up and down, and I'm exposing him here, but he's just bawling, and but looking back at that now, it actually makes a lot of sense to me. The emotion, I've seen a lot of Cubs fans up close and personal now, having done Cubs convention and whatnot, and
Right.
like the fact that this many people already have a really good idea of who's in their farm system is really cool to me. But again, it makes sense. Like I think Cubs fandom is super different than a lot of other places that you'll ever go, and my dad shared a lot of memories, I'm sure, with his family and with my grandfather, who I actually never met. He, I'm sure, was the one that got my dad into the Cubs area, and so I think you could just see that them winning meant a whole lot more to a lot of that city than just a World Series. It felt like to me, what it looked like was that the Cubs fans felt like they had won too, and I think that that's a good it's a good place to be if you're an organization.
Yeah, right. How was his reaction, and what was your reaction when you got traded to the Cubs?
I never saw his reaction. I was in the car and I was going to meet them and my agent for lunch. And we had no idea. Like I wasn't in any trade talks really. There was no, because it was the last day of the trade deadline, and it was my best friend. He was in town in Florida when I was rehabbing, and it was his birthday weekend, and I had no plans of packing my stuff up a couple days later, but I ended up getting to lunch after I got a phone call and didn't really believe it. I didn't quite believe it till I got to Arizona, but I heard from my mom that he had his moment in private. He didn't quite let me in on that, but yeah.
That's so cool. All right, a couple more questions with Cubs top prospect Pete Crow Armstrong, the guy that I nicknamed Hollywood Pete, and it's because if you watch him, you'll know why. It's baseball at another level, and for me personally, having watched the game and broadcast it for 20 years, I can't say that I've ever seen anyone that quite plays it like you. But I could say that about Javy. I could say that about Chris Bryant, and to me, that's pretty high praise. And I guess that leads into this. I look at you as a player that if baseball was set up like the NFL, I think you'd be in the big leagues and you'd be getting the job done right now, right? I think you're ready right now, and you're going to be there soon. How's the process for a guy like you who I know goes to work every day and competes every day like you're in the big leagues of having to climb?
The process has been great. I think it took me a little bit to like really understand the timetable and everything because I wanted to be up in the big league since the day I got drafted. But I think once I heard basically the Cubs just laid out a very nice blueprint for me and roadmap in a way. They told me pretty clearly and pretty directly what they wanted from me in terms of my my development and my path up there. And I think once I finally like bought into that, I think any external stress, and I wouldn't say pressure. I don't feel much external pressure because I feel like my surroundings here in this organization, my circle back home, I think it just adds a lot of security and confidence to me and my process and journey here. But um, having the Cubs kind of just lay out what they wanted from me was nice, and so it gave me something to buy into, and it gave me a timetable to try and beat. You know,
Yeah.
um, I go out there and play like my mom would say, like my hair is on fire every chance I get, just because I know no other way, and I think that's how I play my best baseball is just being myself out there, and um, so yeah, the process has been great. It's it's been a huge it's been a last 2 years just filled with a lot of learning, and I think
No doubt.
I'm most appreciative of that.
Can you help the Chicago Cubs win right now? Can you help the Chicago Cubs win right this second?
Absolutely, yeah, but I think that would be in a very specific role. I think what they
Mhm.
have up there right now is working really well. I think that team's looking like they're gelling really well. So you know, I don't they don't need me up there. They're making this playoff push, with what they got up there, and that's really good right now. Would I love to be a part of that? Absolutely. But I think I already have a very good idea of what my role there would be. So I would just, you said would I be able to help? And that answer is yes, no question. But in whatever role that, is provided for me and asked of me, and I think yeah, it's been nice to watch those guys kind of come out of nowhere. Um, I love what they're doing. It's very exciting to watch. Happy for Belly. Um, the middle of the field's doing great. Our staff is also doing great. So it's been a pleasure to watch.
Yeah. Did any of those guys like mentor you during spring training?
Yeah, I wouldn't even go as far as to say mentor. I think I don't know if there's the time in the day in spring training to mentor. I think that would take a lot, but Nico Horner and Ian Happ were two very big proponents in a lot of that learning process that I've talked about, especially this spring. Um, and more so just because I got to watch them up close. Um,
Yeah.
I think I think Nico is I think both of those guys think very, very originally. They what I feel like they do really well is be themselves on the baseball field, and um, you know, I watched Nico's routine in the cage. I watched Hap's routine in the cage, and I'm always seeing Nico flip open a book and write things down. And so I started trying to see if that would work for me. And that's the coolest part about this is like I gain different methods of practice, methods of learning. Um, you know, and I really think just watching how a lot of the big leaguers went about things and went about their business. I think it told a bigger story than, if I were to just sit down and listen to them chat, know? Um, yeah, I would say those 2 guys, but everybody that I watch, they're a big leaguer for a reason. You got guys with MVPs and Gold Gloves and World Series, and, I'm sure there's more accolades you could probably find, but this is a really good Cubs baseball team, and I think I could see why. I could see why.
Awesome, man. Thank you for doing this. I
Of
really
course.
appreciate it. It's been awesome talking to you, and we'll be watching you on TV soon, brother.